Metiria Turei.
Tēnā koe, Mr Speaker. Tēnā koutou I te whare. My question is to the Prime Minister and asks, has he checked his files yet regarding whether John Banks declared a potential conflict of interest in relation to the New Zealand International Convention Centre Bill while still a Minister? If so, was any conflict declared?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, yes and no.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Metiria Turei.
Does the Prime Minister consider that John Banks, while a Minister in his government, acted in strict accordance with the Cabinet Manual regarding the declaration of conflict of interest, given that no such conflict concerning the Sky City Bill was declared by John Banks?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, yes, and I don't believe there was conflict.
Supplementary question, Metiria Turei.
Does the Prime Minister not agree that a minister who is the subject of court evidence given by someone involved in a multi-million-dollar deal that requires that minister's vote in the House to pass has a conflict of interest? And if so, does that conflict of interest remain once that person is no longer a minister?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Well, Mr Speaker, no, I don't believe there was a conflict of interest. Any more than there would be a conflict of interest if we want to follow the member's logic, that Labor would be voting on employment legislation when we know that the unions actually have a vote in the Labor leadership.
Supplementary.
Order. Order. Supplementary question, Metiria Turei.
Thank you, Mr Speaker.
Order. I have called Metiria Turei for supplementary.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Did the Prime Minister discuss any potential conflicts of interest in relation to the New Zealand International Convention Centre Bill with Sky City Chief Executive Nigel Morrison when he was hanging out with him at the opening of a new Sky City bar in Auckland last week?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, no. And I'm pleased that the member looked at the Herald on Sunday, where I was photographed at that particular opening with many other people.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Metiria Turei.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Is the Prime Minister concerned by reports of yet another conflict of interest concerning the bill, where National MP and Commerce Select Committee member Sam Lutuainga sat silently by while his electorate chair misinformed the Select Committee about the Catholic Church's position on the Sky City Bill? And if not, why not?
Order. The question is addressed to the Prime Minister, who has no responsibility either for what occurred at the Select Committee or for a member of the caucus. It's a question that members are asking to the Prime Minister as a minister. I will give the opportunity for the member to rephrase that question.
Supplementary. Has the Prime Minister seen the reports and is concerned by the reports of yet another conflict of interest concerning a National MP who sat on the Commerce Select Committee silently while his electorate secretary gave misinformation to the committee about the Catholic Church's position on the Sky City Bill? And if he is not concerned, why not?
Order.
Point of order.
Point of order, the Honourable Jerry Brownlee.
Mr Speaker, I believe that what the member has just asked is essentially the same question that you've just ruled on. And it gets to a point, Mr Speaker, where we would have to, for example, have members of the Labor Party reclusing themselves from select committees if one of the unions was appearing, or if Greenpeace were appearing, the Green Party having to leave the Parliament. Mr Speaker, members are expected to exercise a degree of discretion in these matters. I don't think there's been anything wrong with this, and the question, sir, of itself is out of order.
A point of order.
Speaking for the point of order, Metiria Turei.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I would just remind the member, and you may, and also for your consideration, that my question concerned whether the Prime Minister had seen any reports or had any concern about any such reports, and he does have responsibility for that.
Yeah, the difficulty the member has, and I attempted, she's tried to abide by the standing orders, is the Prime Minister doesn't have responsibility. The member is not going to make the grade in asking the question by trying to rephrase it. I won't rule the question out of. I'll give the member effectively another shot at another question.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Very generous.
Supplementary.
Order.
He's responsible.
Metiria Turei, supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Has the Prime Minister had any discussions with Cabinet regarding the Catholic Church's position being misrepresented by Sam Lutuainga's electorate chairperson while Sam Lutuainga was on that committee? And if so, did any member of his Cabinet express any concerns regarding the misrepresentation of the Catholic Church's position?
Right, Honourable Prime Minister, as far as he has a responsibility.
Mr. Speaker, no, I've not had any discussions with Cabinet. In relation to reports, yes, I have seen one report that came from Trevor Mallard that said the member's not on top of her job, and I agree with Trevor Mallard.
Supplementary.
Order. Supplementary question, Metiria Turei.
Point of order.
Point of order.
Mr. Speaker, if that last comment from the Prime Minister could in any way be construed as being in and related to the question, then every part of the member's primary, secondary and subsequent questions should have been allowed in by the licence you gave that Prime Minister.
Yeah. The member raises quite a valid point on this occasion. The answer from the Prime Minister was not helpful to the order of the House, but at the end of the day, he was actually responding to an interjection that came from the opposition side of the House. Metiria Turei, supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Supplementary question, Metiria Turei.
Will the Prime Minister require all members of his Cabinet or his government to declare any personal or financial conflict of interest that they may have in voting for the Sky City Bill and make those declarations public?
Right, Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Cabinet Ministers already follow rules in relation to conflicts of interest. They work with the Cabinet Office to ensure that they follow the rules, and in my experience of seeing them in action, they follow those rules closely.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Metiria Turei.
Has the Prime Minister discussed with his Cabinet any concerns about the fact that the New Zealand International Convention Centre legislation may only get through because of votes from John Banks, who has an undeclared conflict of interest, and Sam Lutuainga, who kept silent over his electorate chair, misrepresenting the views of the Catholic Church to the Commerce Select Committee?
Right, Honourable Prime Minister would answer the first part of that question.
No, I think the member's wrong. In fact, I think the member's out to lunch. No, it's not in order for the member, for the Prime Minister to ask that last part of that answer. Would he stand, withdraw and apologise for that? Withdraw and apologise.
Question number 4, the Honourable Annette King.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Health.